Hi, I'm Dr. Larry Malerba, and welcome to All Things Homeopathy. Today I'll be discussing the concept of susceptibility. What is it that renders us susceptible to illness? When it comes to disease causation, Western medicine focuses almost exclusively on external and material factors. In other words, it blames most illness on its two favorite whipping boys, germs and genes. Medicine chooses these targets because of its built-in bias in favor of a reductionist and materialist worldview. Unlike other less tangible disease-causing factors like emotional health, dietary history, and exposure to environmental toxins, for example, germs and genes can be easily seen, measured, and manipulated by the tools of science. In focusing its attention on these limited factors, Western medicine virtually ignores the most important factor in disease susceptibility, the health of the host. Okay, so the unacknowledged complement to germ theory is terrain theory. The health of the host is paramount in ensuring resistance to illness. While medicine focuses on drugs designed to kill microbes, homeopathy focuses on strengthening immunity and correcting imbalances in the life force. It's important to ask whether invading germs are the causes of illness, or is it the weakened health status of the individual host that allows a germ to take advantage? Is a germ the cause of an infection, or is it just another symptom of a susceptible immune system? Is it always advisable to kill germs? And doesn't the routine killing of germs accelerate natural selection, thereby producing more antibiotic-resistant germs? Similarly, do genes cause illness? Or do various internal and environmental factors that affect the health of an individual make it possible for a gene to express itself in a deleterious manner? These questions are not just an intellectual exercise. They have far-reaching, real-world consequences. In fact, they point to the fundamental differences between the mainstream medical worldview and the homeopathic perspective. So let's take a look at how terrain theory translates into practical reality. Before we do that, it's important to understand the differences between acute and chronic illness. An acute illness is one that is short-lived, one that usually resolves on its own, thanks to the innate healing capacity of the immune system and the bioenergetic life force. Think of the common cold or a fever. These are the types of illnesses whereby a person usually recovers with little assistance and returns to his or her previous state of good health. It's no coincidence that these illnesses occur mostly in children, adolescents, and young adults, precisely because they tend to be healthier than most adults. The healthier an individual is, the more likely he or she will fully recover from an acute illness. Less healthy individuals can have a harder time recovering from an acute illness like a cold or a fever. Sometimes they never fully recover. For example, a patient may complain about achy joints ever since a bout of the flu years prior. In such cases, the original acute illness has morphed into a chronic condition. Generally speaking, as we age and as life's stressors take their toll on our health, we become more susceptible to developing chronic illness. A chronic illness is one that does not go away. It continues to maintain its presence either continually or episodically. When an adult patient reports getting sick with a fever, but then fully recovers, he or she may later ask if that was a sign of a weakened immune system. That's when I explain that it's actually a good sign. It's the way a healthy, properly functioning immune system should work. It's the same reason why normal childhood immunologic milestones, like chickenpox and measles, are a good thing. They serve to sharpen the skills of the immune system as it develops and matures. This brings us to the concept of range of susceptibility. In a family of 5, 2 come down with the flu, but 3 others do not. Why is that? Because some are susceptible and others are not. Most adults tend to develop colds, fevers, and flus far less frequently than do healthy children. And why is that? Well, it's because most adults are too sick to mount a normal, healthy immune response. The life force is often preoccupied with some other chronic condition, one that makes it less likely that they'll be susceptible to normal acute illness. As a general rule, one becomes less susceptible to normal run-of-the-mill acute illnesses as one develops chronic health problems. When an adult says that he hasn't had a fever in more than 10 years, that's not necessarily a good thing. It may be because his system is too busy coping with some other chronic condition, like asthma or migraines. Just like you don't see normal, healthy kids who have chronic diseases like high blood pressure and arthritis, you also tend not to see adults with chronic diseases who commonly get colds or fevers. That's because the range of susceptibility is different for the two groups. However, there are always exceptions to the rule, and that range of susceptibility can be altered by a wide variety of adverse influences. As those factors impinge upon the health of the individual, the range of susceptibility tends to shift away from acute illnesses toward more chronic health problems. For example, a healthy adult woman catches cold 2 or 3 times a year, but has no other health problems. 6 months after the death of her mother, she experiences her first migraine headache. The migraines continue to occur periodically thereafter, thus becoming a chronic health problem. Conversely, quality homeopathic care can help shift the range of susceptibility away from chronic disease and back in the direction of simple, self-limiting health problems. A well-chosen homeopathic remedy will eliminate this woman's migraines while allowing her to adequately and effectively grieve the loss of her mother. You may ask, why is it that the elderly or very sick can often die if they catch a cold or flu? The answer is because their health is so compromised to begin with. A healthy child may easily shrug off the same flu that can be life-threatening to an immunocompromised adult. It's the underlying weakened state of health that is the real threat to such an individual. So the range of susceptibility can shift in either direction along the continuum of acute versus chronic disease. It's far more preferable to be susceptible to the former and not the latter. Taking good care of oneself and treating symptoms properly without resorting to suppressive measures will help ensure that a person remains less susceptible to more serious illness. Where a person's health lies along the continuum of susceptibility can help explain why he gets sick in certain ways and not others. A person prone to indigestion and constipation may be too healthy to be susceptible to developing cancer or a stroke, but he may also be too sick to be susceptible to catching the viral illness going around town. Just as we can conceptualize illness across an acute versus chronic spectrum, illness also develops and progresses along a physical, emotional, mental continuum. As disease progresses, it penetrates deeper into the system. As it worsens, it tends to move from the physical plane to the emotional plane and ultimately to the mental plane. Compare, for example, low back pain on the physical level, depression on the emotional level, and memory loss on the mental level. Each successive example represents a deeper and more threatening form of illness. Unlike conventional medicine, homeopathy recognizes that in the progression of illness, symptoms can jump from one level to another. This is why some anti-arthritis pharmaceutical drugs are associated with side effects like depression and suicidal ideation. Homeopaths understand that these are not just random side effects. They're the direct effect of suppressing a physical illness to such an extent that it encourages it to penetrate or to metastasize to a deeper level. It is a predictable effect that results from improper suppressive treatment. In fact, most pharmaceutical drugs have a suppressive effect. However, many drugs act in subtler, less obvious ways so that the effects of suppression may not be immediately discernible. It may take some time to manifest. For example, a woman's tendency to get hives is treated with prednisone, a powerful immunosuppressive steroid. Her hives never come back. Instead, she gradually becomes increasingly irritable, so much so that her family becomes concerned about her. Because it happens so gradually, no one notices the connection between the disappearance of her hives and the new, deeper emotional problem. In addition to being encouraged to take over-the-counter pills for every little symptom, the typical American consumer takes a surprising number of prescription drugs over the course of a lifetime. The cumulative effect of so much suppression usually alters the range of susceptibility in a decidedly negative direction. The net effect is to render one less susceptible to minor illnesses and more susceptible to serious physical illnesses, in addition to mental and emotional problems. It's important to understand that each level also has its own continuum. On the physical plane, we see things like colds, rashes, and constipation. But as physical illness progresses, it can manifest deeper on the physical plane, producing problems like asthma, gallbladder attacks, and hypertension. On the emotional plane, we see comparatively minor problems like impatience and nervousness, but we can also see debilitating conditions like phobias and dark depressions. As illness progresses, it has a tendency to move along the continuum on each individual plane from less severe to more threatening problems. But illness also has the capacity to jump from one plane to another as it penetrates deeper and becomes more chronic. This diagram, therefore, is an oversimplification. In reality, all levels are interconnected. In fact, mind and body aren't just connected, they are one and the same. The materialist bias of Western medicine allows it to focus on the body while downplaying the role of mind. Homeopathy takes it for granted that mind and body are one. It is also important to understand that these symptomatic trends are general tendencies and not absolute laws of nature. It's possible to have symptoms that simultaneously manifest on different levels to varying degrees of intensity. For example, a young man gets a sinus infections a few times a year. He also struggles with a mild case of depression. Upon questioning, he admits that he has a persistent nagging belief that there's something wrong with him. He believes he is worthless in comparison to his peers. To the homeopath, all three of these symptoms together constitute one overall health problem. It's reasonable to assume that more antibiotics for each successive episode of sinusitis is likely to drive the overall problem deeper into his system, thus rendering him more susceptible to his mental emotional problems, which will likely manifest as a more severe form of depression. The homeopathic remedy Thuya turns out to fit this case quite well. A month after a couple doses of Thuya, he reports feeling much better emotionally. His thoughts of being worthless are much less common. He also notes that his sinuses have been less congested than usual. 2 months later, he reports that several warts have appeared on his feet. This is an old symptom that he used to have years ago. So we see in this example that improper treatment can drive an illness deeper into the system, causing it to intensify on the emotional and mental levels. Proper treatment with the correct homeopathic remedy causes the illness to shift away from deeper levels back toward the physical level. The net effect is to make this young man less susceptible to depression and more susceptible to a minor skin problem. The reappearance of the old warts is a positive sign that the center of gravity of his overall condition is now localized on a more superficial level, thus posing much less of a threat to his overall well-being. The way in which illness progresses is not at all a random phenomenon. It's oftentimes quite predictable, and it ultimately is a function of susceptibility. Susceptibility is a function of many complex factors, including hereditary, environmental, psychological, medical, and societal factors. I've already touched upon one of the most important of all factors, suppression by allopathic drugs. Surgeries, too, although sometimes necessary, constitute another type of suppression. To learn more about the nature of suppression, please check out episode number 10 of the All Things Homeopathy series. Vaccines have a different kind of effect. Vaccines tinker directly with the immune system in ways that can produce allergic reactions and autoimmune responses, which in turn can lead to unpredictable consequences. At first glance, a vaccine may seem to work, but it often does so by shifting the susceptibility of the individual away from, let's say, measles. However, in the process, that person may be rendered more susceptible to chronic illness. In my opinion, vaccines and pharmaceutical drugs together are by far the biggest contributors to our unique American susceptibility to the development of chronic illness. Traumatic events, too, whether physical or emotional, can also play a significant role in the overall health and susceptibility of a person. Oftentimes, trauma can leave an energetic scar on the person, one that renders him or her more susceptible to certain types of stressors. The only way to truly mitigate the effects of such an energetic imprint is through a form of energy healing, like homeopathy. There are many additional factors, both positive and negative, that can shift the susceptibility of a person in one direction or the other. Nutrition, exercise, education, one's upbringing, socioeconomic pressures, and environmental pollution are just a few such factors. Now, depending upon how we conceptualize it, we see that susceptibility can shift along different spectrums. Susceptibility can shift between acute and chronic disease. It can move from the physical to the emotional or to the mental level. It can also move in the direction of either a stronger or weaker immune system. Although it tends to get all the attention, the immune system is just one small aspect of the greater whole. In addition to the immune system, there is also the microbiome and the neuroendocrine system, but there's still much more. Fortunately, there is a better, more encompassing way by which to conceptualize all of these phenomena together as one. Dr. Hahnemann referred to that which governs the overall health and well-being of body, mind, and spirit as the vital force. A strong vital force is a resilient vital force, one that is susceptible only to minor disturbances, like a brief cold or a minor itch or a passing mood. When the vital force is weakened, it becomes more susceptible to illness. The vital force, or life force, is an electromagnetic bioenergetic phenomenon that includes but also transcends the immune system and the material body. The vital force governs all life-sustaining functions. A disturbed or out of balance life force will generate symptoms. All symptoms can be interpreted as distress signals. Symptoms also represent the body's best attempt to heal itself. That's why a strong and healthy vital force will manifest its distress toward the periphery, as in the case of a skin rash or a runny nose. A compromised vital force shows its distress through more serious symptoms on deeper levels. While Western medicine concentrates its efforts on combating or suppressing those distress signals, homeopathy seeks to mimic those symptoms, knowing that in doing so, it will help restore order and balance to the disturbed vital force. When healing takes place, the life force no longer finds it necessary to generate symptomatic distress signals. When balance is restored, the life force becomes flexible, strong, and resilient once again. In this age of germ terror, it's important to understand that there's more to getting sick than just conventional germ theory. Terrain theory accounts for the forgotten and neglected half of the equation. The overall health of the host determines its susceptibility to various types of illness. We can direct our efforts toward fighting disease, or we can focus our energies on improving health. There's a big difference. Well, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel, and I hope you'll tune in again to the next episode of All Things Homeopathy.